Okay, we will continue the lessons today. We will touch upon various different topics, but briefly, first of all, I would like to go over the research design process, which is extremely important. And for the research design process, basically, when we conduct a research, in our if you are managers, so managers in a factories or in a companies, or you are consultants uh, giving consultation to various different companies in, like, for example, can the productivity improvements or re-engineering or resource enterprise design, or maybe organization development, helping the organizations leaders to set up some cultures and observe the cultures, or suggest what to do with the cultures. Or as a students, PhD students, master degree students, undergraduate students who are working on research. Usually, because of your experience, usually because of an experience, you already have accumulated a lot of experiences, and so you have some questions in mind that something it's going to work and something it's not going to work, or something that you have not known before and you want to find it out. You assume that it's going to it's going to uh, it's going to make you make clear your questions. And so it is therefore quite reasonable to start with clarifying some of the questions. But bear in mind, some of the questions that you started, which I will demonstrate to you later, slowly, the questions that you start may not be clear, very clear questions, and you still have to go through asking a lot of peoples and maybe making more observations and maybe read more things in order to sharpen your question. So, but anyway, there are some questions that you can start with. Okay, so research, therefore, we can reasonably agree that we start our research with trying to attempting to clarify some of the questions. Okay, discovering them, defining them, as I told you that we have to clarify some of the questions, and then we interview other peoples and observe things and get more information, and then slowly we sharpen and define our question, and so we define and redefine our questions. So we have to explore for uh, the within our applications and contexts and working environments and the places where we want to do research and clarify those questions. Once we have those done, of course, there are a lot of details which we will go through, and then you come up with a research proposal. Okay, you come up with a research proposal. Usually for undergraduate, if you have plenty of opportunity and times, we will go through all the way. But other than that, otherwise, most of the undergraduate also allows students to stop at the research proposals time. Even master degree, if you are not taking for, if it's not a research, does not require to complete a thesis, then you probably can stop at research proposal. But if it's a thesis requirements, then you have to continue all the way. So once you have the research proposal, the next things you have to do is that you have to, within the research proposal, you have to clarify how you design your research steps and processes, right? And how you're going to collect your data, how you're going to design your collections, and who you're going to ask, and where you're going to collect the data, and sampling, and so on and so forth, and then including the sort of the question that you would ask, either in interviews. Probably you could have the open-ended questions, some little bit of closed questions, but closed questions means you already given them sort of the scopes of answering. But open questions, you give them space, right? So they can answer anything they want. And then from there, once you have done your research design, and you just collect the data. But you have to phone people, so you have to call people, you have to get people to agree to give you the data and to respond to you, and then from there you make sure that you apply your statistics and your ability to analyze the data, and then do some reportings and then finished. Okay, and then that if you are in a company, that depends on that reportings will give the foundation for the managers, the management committees or the CEOs or the directors to make some final decision. So this is so there is no really difference between a research process and a decisions making process of a typical fact-based, data-driven company. So if you are in a company, a big company, pretty much you have a lot of data and pretty much you are engineering driven and fact-based driven, then this is the process. So there is no difference between practical issues and procedures in the companies in comparisons with the research procedures that typically the students are being trained in university. If you go a little bit deeper, it is not difficult to understand a couple of detailed steps. So what happened is that when you have some of your questions in mind, uh, yeah, you probably go through some observations and preliminary data gathering, as I have just explained it, data gatherings like interviewing or some literature survey. So you're getting data from external and from primary data, meaning interviews, secondary data from the literature review. And so you really go through all your questions domains and the places where your question is going to be resolved, and then and trying to narrow down your area where you want to do some research, right? Get a detailed confirmation. And so that means that you have to have a clear problem definitions, which is really the research objective. So the purpose of this research is to that means you have pretty clear problem definition and your objective, and then because of that, once you are clear with where your problems are and how you're going to solve and which direction you're going to solve, or maybe just problem area, okay, maybe not yet reaching the objective. So it really depends on your research. Then you go through some very in-depth critical literature review. So you have to review a lot of literatures, meanings you have to read a lot of books, journals, articles from the publications, not from the internet that you guys submit reports to me, the HTTP and all this. You have to really go through a proper journals articles. And so once you go through the proper journals articles, then and read those contents that relevance to use and able to help you understand and clear some of your problem definitions issue area. You have to you probably will arrive at some theoretical model. Why we need a theoretical model or theoretical framework? Because a model you have learned as a business student, for example, if you go to MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technologies, they will give you to train you. Every students who are going to work out from MIT will need to be able to have model to be able to understand the systems of variables influencing each others, and so structure those variables and into a model. So, so this is a very important, because the model gives you the structures way of looking at the problem area, and which involves all the variables, right? All kind of variables. So if I ask you corporate citizenship as one of the variable, if I ask you corporate culture as another variable, and I ask and maybe go through your literature review, you identified more variables like maybe performances or innovation or strategic, more strategic orientation, or the quality management systems, leadership, and all these variables. Uh, they, 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 they makes no meaning if you do not organize them into a picture, into a model. So the understanding will gain power when your variables are being organized into a framework or into a model. So you can see from the picture, from the pictorial diagram or illustrations, that which variables influences which variable. So for example, the assignment on antecedent, if I ask you for antecedents to some variables, meaning some variable that happens before that variables, okay? So what influences learning and growth? That is called antecedence variable. So it could be corporate cultures that influence the organizational learning and growth. So if I so organizational learning and growth, the more they learn and grow, so culture influences learning and growth, and the more they learn and grow, the more the students get motivated. So motivations increase. Another variables, and if motivation increases, corporate citizenship behavior rises. That's another variables, and then corporate citizenship rises. The cultures and the performances, the customers' value propositions get innovated, and then from there, performance competitive advantage arises, and then from there, performance as a result. And so this sequence of action and cause and effect, it's called framework. Okay, so a framework demonstrates that you understand literature review. Otherwise, you all give me a report that demonstrate, oh, okay, this is corporate citizenship. Okay, this is corporate culture. Okay, this is performance. Okay, this is motivation, but I have no idea what you're talking about. I know you are writing something. First of all, there's no citation, meaning there's no references. This means there's you don't know, you just simply copy and paste. Modify some of the sentences so there is no plagiarism. But in plagiarism equal to 0 does not mean you do not plagiarize. In fact, you already plagiarize 100%. So there are two modes of plagiarisms. One of the plagiarism is by the plagiarism test. The other plagiarism is so obvious that it is plagiarized, which we can, if the computer, because the software cannot determine, so it's determined by human being. So if you don't like it, we go to the court. Go to the court and judge, and if you will for sure lose the case, and so it's a plagiarized situation. So this anyway, if a good literature review demonstrates that you understand how to organize and structurize and sort out variables into an orders of system. And so you can, when people ask you, okay, tell me what is the relationship between corporate cultures and motivation and corporate citizenship behaviors and innovation and learning and growth and competitive advantage and performance and so on and so forth, you are able to demonstrate and explain with a storyline, with a good understanding and in a very easy way. So this is what theoretical model is all about, and it started from a pool of knowledge. So we call deduction, a pool starting from something to something, right? And then because you have plenty of research, if then because the model query say the structure of relationship, so we can easily form hypotheses such as the corporate cultures drive the organizational learning, and more employees learn in the organizations, the more motivated they are. This is another hypothesis. The more motivated they are, the more they are demonstrates corporate citizenship behavior. Another hypothesis: the more they demonstrate corporate citizenship behavior, the more they can be innovative. Another hypothesis: the more they can be innovative, the more they can derive a basis of competitive advantage, which is called value proposition. Innovative value propositions. The more value innovative propositions get designed and installed and implemented successfully in the market, the more competitive advantage they have, and the more advantage they have comparatively, the more performance they can maintain. So this is a whole series of hypotheses, right? And all these are your assumption based on that you think is going to solve your problem area from the very beginning. That you want to know the problem is that under your control and management, that whether performance and competitive advantage really influence and come from cultures, but you are not so sure how culture is influencing how it influences the organization. So you study the literature review, and you assume that cultures get influence will influence blah 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 all the way to performance. So this forms a hypothesis. Now you want to test you want to see whether you are correct. Okay, in that sense. So you design your research, whether you want to do some questionnaire, or you want to do some interviews, or you want to do some observation in the factory, or you want to do some field visits, or you want to go to some a couple of companies, and not only your companies, and so your research design. And this we already I already demonstrate to you that if you have a strong research knowledge already as in existence, so you do the literature reviews and all the way that to the research design, that is a deduction. But otherwise, if you have because some of the research problems, some of the problem areas are very much not yet addressed in the literature review. Well, I'm not so sure which one, but it could be, for example, is nuclear war, possibility of a nuclear or behavior of a nation leaders going into a nuclear war, and this kind of things is almost very difficult. And I hope that this is not the way. There's no such a problem is this. Of course, there is some problem is this. There's a tendency of these national leaders doing so. So if there is not much information on that, you try to review the literature review and back and forth, and spend almost a few months and finding the literature review in this particular problem area, and trying to look at and see whether you can get detail, but you are not able to get the detail. So you straight away jump back to go into the induction, meaning you straight away go to the design, maybe get some interviews, different presidents, and as a social media, as a news reporter, maybe interviews 20 presidents in depth and analyze their patterns of responses, and see what do they tell you, and under what circumstances, and what action they would what happens before, or what action they would take for nuclear decision. And so this is called induction. So there is a deduction and induction processes, right? So research is really nothing but a sequential process of decisions making, similar to organization in a management. And from there, once you sort up your research design, you can collect your data, analyze it, interpret, make sure that whatever you analyzed, you are able to tell the story of what you analyze. You don't just simply say, well, this is my data and this is what I analyzed, and this is and that's it. This is not going to work for research. And I've seen this, of course, you're not able to get a good discussion. You're not able to get a good conclusion. You're not able to tell me the story, and so on and so forth. So, and this is, so the differences between research and other of your SWOT analysis in your regular homework assignment is really data-driven, knowledge-driven, and tell me the real knowledge. Don't tell me your ideas. No, there's no idea. All idea is only around 1, 2, 3. It's maybe 1 and 3 is only idea. Other than that, there is no idea. Even 1 is not idea. Okay, and so once you get this interpretation analysis done, and so that means that in induction you already answered your research question, right? And if it's in deduction, maybe you already have using statistics to support your hypothesis or fail to support your hypothesis, and of course answer the research question since the very beginning. And then once all this research question has already been addressed, then you can start your thesis writing or articles reporting, and then make a presentation, and then for the management to make decision based upon your information summarized that derive from the actual data and good efforts of analysis and the problem. So if these whoever's, and if you circulate around and whoever think that they share the similar problem, then they can apply and adapt it, and that is called generalizations. That means your research is able to be generalized, to become general to external various others industries or companies that share the similar problematic area, and things like that, and that kind of the and also the same sort of data collection. If you're collecting from big companies, and you conclude in this way for the big company, and then I'm a big company, and so this is called generalization in the representative or population representation or population generalization sense. So you can generalize to a similar groups of population, which is really relating to sampling and nothing much with these external application in various other fields. But if you can apply to external application in various other fields, that means that we all share the similar theoretical understanding under the context of the similar applicable problem, and that could induce analytical generalizations, meaning that the analytical processes of your conclusion can be applied to various different cases in the industry. So we have analytical generalization. So you can see that the research process is really is really step by step, and not much that is out of your control. And many things that I talk about the quality of research, that is generalization, meaning that your conclusions can be generalized, can be applicable to various different areas, various different companies, various different countries, various different places, that can be because of the similar structures of populations. We call population generalization, and representational in the sense, and or the analytical in the sense that the whole concepts under the same context of problem can be applicable, and that is analytical generalization. So, and another one is that you make sure that your overall process is consistently executed, and people can repeat it, and that you go through every step in a responsible way, so you get very reliable process. So reliability, right? And so you design things in a design every machinery, equipments, right? In your production in a very robust way. So you're using the right equipments, and very durable equipments, and people training them to to execute your production. So you get a reliable process. So there's no difference between production and research too. So if you really understand what is what is production, if you really when you are a student studying research operations and production and manufacturing, depends on your disciplines. It could be engineering studying the manufacturing, could be the industrial engineering studying the manufacturing, and operations could be business students studying the operations processes in a simple way, and whichever the case. If you really understand it, there is no if then you know what is reliability. Then there is no difference between reliabilities and reliabilities of a research process. And if you understand marketing, that segmentations and positioning and targeting and all this strategic positioning, strategic management, and there is no difference between generalizations analytically and populations wise, representational wise to your research process, because your job at the end is to be able to expand your market, and so that your generalization is as big as possible. And otherwise, your business will be confined, constrained to a unique, defined, narrow area of market, which means that you have constrained your revenue sources and things like that. So this is called generalization. But again, how do you do that? You gotta have value proposition. You gotta deliver something that it fits into the value proposition. That is the problem definition area that you already familiar in many different places, like the pain point, the gain, contributor of your value propositions to solve the problems, challenge and potential assistance of your customers. And so the whole overall process that you deliver is that you design your product and manufacturing it and whatever is really nothing but to match and fit in that value proposition. That is called validity. Something is valid. So what you do is valid. It's you deliver to the real expectation in that authentic in that expected way. So you got to control your quality in that perspective, and that is called validities, right? So there is something. So you got to produce something that is valid for the market, that is valuable to the market, and that is how you create competitive advantage. And if you can always do that, that is competitive advantage, the beginning of a competitive advantage. Well, people can replicate your research process. That is good. Okay, that is called generalization. That's called repeatability, and that is called validity in the external sense. But let it be. Let other competitors do it. But at least you can go through a process, right, in the research to ensure a quality control. So in a production of research is no difference from service operations research and production operations research, manufacturing operations research, marketing operations research, branding operations research, or and things like that. Okay, we have three qualities. One of them is validity, another one is reliabilities, another one is generalization. Okay, and so these are the situation in a typical production. And so if you get a little bit more details of this study, you will know that you have to figure it out in your research design. When you study the research design, that in the stage where you want to find out how you're going to collect data in the research design. And so that what happened is that you need to figure it out, what kind of how you're going to collect the data, and how you're going to analyze them, things like that at the end. And so how you gonna collect the data? What you can do, so many things. You can do survey, you can observe, you can do some case studies, you can look at different companies and various different company in different industries, or in various different company in a cluster sense, different location, or you can start with some observations and data and interviews, like I demonstrate to you the interviewing the national leaders about the nuclear situations grounded, and then develop some patterns of understanding. So we are really developing the theory from the data, so we call grounded theory. And we can do some action research that really solve a problem in a company or in a manufacturing. For example, you have a problem with why the production line has a steam issue, and that is not able to properly cook the food in a very consistent, robust manner. So you want to figure it out. Is that the social issue? Is that a technical issue? So social technical issue. Social issue means the people issue, so you want to do some experiment to find out which of the product has the best lifetime. Was it depends on the ingredients, depends on the processing, is it depends on the raw materials, it depends on what. Maybe you want to run into different possibility using Takuchi to minimize the gaps between expectations and actual reality, which you have already learned from operations. And then from there, or you want to do some combinations of survey, questionnaire, plus interviews and in-depth observation and things like that, mixed method. And so if you decide on your strategy, and which involves all these different types of data collection, okay, it could be interviews, observation. And then from there, you want to study whether you extend the researcher's interference, how you're going to what degree you are heavily involved with this design, or you are very much in a far away distance looking at your process. And so we have to focus on sampling data, whether you want to. Do you know anybody that can get you? Do you know someone that you know personally that can give you in touch of the data, or do you really need to be involved actively and heavily in the by looking into the culture of the places where you can get stay a couple of days, couple of months in order to get a feeling and in-depth understandings of the cultures before you can really understand what is going on. So we're talking about non-probability sampling in the sense of purposely sampling. Is purposely select a community or organizations and you stay there for months and get to know them, and so that you can solve you can understand and address the problems dealing with the problem. Or otherwise you can do some probability sampling and through the questionnaire, and simply deliver the questionnaires to the respective respondents. I mean the people who are willing to address and answers your question, but in a very far distance way that you do not really need to get very close with them. So we're talking about probability. So what you do, you just simply go to the statistics text that you have learned before, and see how you can get the probability sampling. So you go to maybe put up some numbering on the places where you want to do, and then you do the random provide the random tables, and then you, according to the numbers, you figure it out which people you can select from the population, and that is called probability sampling. Or if you are not able to do that, then you have to figure it out, ensuring that there is a randomness, random ability to equally choose the samples from whichever populations that you are collecting data from. So you have to determine those sample size and things like that, which you have learned from your statistics classes, and then from there you have to see whether how you're going to you have determined where you're going to collect your data, how you're going to collect the data. So you have to determine how you're going to measure your data. So you have to think about the measurements, contrive your measurements, so you have to, for example, if you want to measure something about organizations culture, which is very extreme and it's nothing to do with some concrete, objective measurements, such as how fast the place, how fast the production line is, and the productivity, and the quality control, quality defects, and the speed of operations, and the runtime, and the management, maintenance time, and things like that. And if nothing to do with those concrete objectives measurement, so something to do with abstract things, which we call construct. You construct a variable we call construct, and so this variable, this construct, is an abstract form. So we need to give an operation, a definitions, which is a conceptual definition, theoretical definition. But then you also need to translate into measurement. So you need to operationalize the definitions which I have given you. The examples before, like the bowling. How do you define maturities and skills and expertise in bowling? And operational definition is that anybody can strike, and with the proper recording system on the bowling alley, the bowling processes, and then that would define the expertise and skill. And so these are the operational definitions. So you provide a proper operational definitions, and which according to your conceptual concept, theoretical concept, and you trying to translate those concepts into operational details like questionnaire. That is called operational definition. And each of the questionnaire we call items. And so corporate cultures, it could be defined. Our organization, our organizations it's always adapting to, it's always monitoring the trends of the external trend, so that we can and adapt for innovative ideas and things like that. And that means your culture is flexible, has that flexibilities, and so these are called items. And then from there, to what degree is each of the items reflect your organizational practices? Very much so, and strongly disagree that it reflect, or disagree, or neutral, neither disagree nor agree, or strong, or agree and strongly agree. Depending on how you set up your skill, you can set up the skill in this bi-liked skill. So with that kind of skill, and with the category of, maybe there are different levels, different scopes, different domains of cultures, like flexibility culture, external oriented culture, internally oriented culture, flexibility oriented cultures, or more fixated oriented culture, or things like that. And so these are called categorization. And then if you are into interviews, so you can probably go into how people's what people's talking, they're talking, their script, and then see, trying to identify, try to code, what do they say, each of the line, what do they say, each of the sentences, do they talk about, is this means flexibility? So there is a code flexibilities come into the picture. And then flexibilities is one of the code, and then you trying to code flexibility, and there is another one called adaptability. There's another one called internal orientation. There's another one called external orientation. So you give those are big code, okay, and then you can categorize all those code into a category called culture, and that is where culture review comes about. From your data analysis, right? From the interview. So again, all this, whether you are questionnaire designs or interviews, really involve all these operational definitions, conceptual definitions, measurements, items, which is the interview scripts that people talk about it, and skill. In interview is how strong they say about something, how strong they say very strongly that we are in flexibility. That means that it's very strong. So scaling, categorizing, coding, measurement. So you can flexibly do so in all these qualitatives or quantitative surveying. And then from there, you already understand it, but make sure that you know that your questionnaire design and all these data collections places are for individuals or for a pair of persons or peoples or a group of people or organizations, or it's adapting to focusing on a machine, right, guys? As I told you, the speed, right? The speed and all this organizational effectiveness, overall equipment's effectiveness, OEE, that you have studied in operations management and production. So they're using the OEE, which is in identifying where the overall equipment's effectiveness really coming from, whether your defects or whether coming from the design of the equipment, or whether coming from the way you manage your processes and things like that. And then from there, you can see whether you want to do a collection either in a cross-sectional one-shot time, or you want to prolong it and collect it or observe the situation in a longitudinal sense for a long period of time. So some people collect the data, especially in action research, right? Action research, where you try to solve an organizational problem. And so you need to observe it, suggest, and then implement it, and then see what happened, and then adapt it, and then so this takes a long time. So it's a longitudinal issue. Some of the survey, you just give the questionnaire, and you, in one time, one go, one shot, cross-sectional, and that particular place, particular point in time, you can basically obtain all the information. And so it's a cross-sectional. So in the details of the research research design really involve all this detail, okay, and things like that. And then from there you can you can analyze the data. To analyze the data, you can have a field of your data first, especially for interviews, qualitative, and then you try to see whether all the data that come out are they in good quality form? Are they valid? Are they reliable? And are they able to generalize to different areas? And so that you can expand your market. So we call goodness, right? So goodness of data, that's called quality of your product. So quality of your product or services is about validity, how valid your product is, meaning your valid propositions, met the requirements of the customer, and your requirements of your delivering your when you make your product, are they reliably made, produced? If not, then we use the product in one or two times and it is broken, and then we're not able to use it. So repeatability, consistency, reliability, all this issue. And then another one is that is your data able to help you expand your market, generalization, or many people can use it. That is called your population to the market get expanded. And then it concludes, if you really sell your product according to what you say, reliable product, valid product, quality product, or generalizable product, and is that means that your company really able to sell it, if you have this validity, reliabilities, and generalizability, things like that. And that's called hypothesis testing. Sorry, hypothesis is, as I already told you, something causes something, something explains something, something lead to something, something is antecedent to something. So all these issues is what you have already know from various different courses. And so this hopefully this process of research gives you a view of what you have studied from the day one of your university. I was trained as an engineer in engineering and from the universities Wisconsin, and we never study engineering research or business research. It's all picked up from these various different courses. We study a lot of courses, like you study a lot of courses. So we study thermodynamic, fluid mechanics, advanced thermodynamic, advanced fluid mechanics, and then we study this aerodynamics. We study all these different areas, and then from there we learn how each of these classes able to solve the problem, and then things like that. And then slowly, and then gradually we know how to do the research, and then from by the end of the second year, we I was given the scholarship. The beginning of the middle of second year, given the scholarship by the university and the U.S. Navy for analyzing to analyze some engineering issues in submarine propulsion. And so this is how we do research without even really understand. So you're very, very fortunate that we are transferring the research. Somebody else is sharing the research process with you, and they give you an overview of what you have learned in the various series of processes of your classes that you can apply. And so once you collect your data, you can collect in two forms, right? You can collect either in questionnaire. So you have to administer the question. Once you have the questionnaire, you have to administer the questionnaire in a robust sense, in a reliable sense, that in an unbiased sense, so that it generates the reliability and validity, and then make sure that you also test the goodness, which is the validity, reliabilities of the questionnaire, which is testing your product before you sell your product, right? So this is similar to production. And then make sure that in your product design, questionnaire design, there's proper wording. So how you're gonna proper word your product, how you're gonna the principles of wording, content, what kind of things need to be in the content of your questionnaire. I have already given you many examples, and just now was on culture, so so the content and the purpose of the question really is very important, and the wordings and use of languages, types of forms of question, sequencing of your question, how you're going to arrange your questions from one end to another end, and how you're going to classify your question. Is this culture section? Is this performance section? Is this organizational citizenship section? Is that the performance? Is that the competitive advantage section? Is that the other section? So all these are really nothing about questionnaire. So you have to, I have already explained that the principles of all you measuring all this is has to be considered in whether it is interviews or observations, questionnaire design. Make sure that you have proper coding, categorization, consideration skills of your measurement, to what degree you feel appropriate to that this segment is reflecting what you experience, and so strongly disagree and to strongly agree. So these skills and skillings are very important, reliabilities and validity, and the general setup, which is the overall appearance of this questionnaire or your interviews scopes, right? So appearance of the questionnaire, length of the questionnaire, introduction, properly introduced to people, instructions of completion, and all these very, very important. Goodness of data, I have already explained that the reliability, the validity, whether we truthfully reflect what is actually expected of the concept, what is expected of the company, of the customer, right? So we have content validity means that the items that we put in, the contents that we put in really considers the overall needed of the overall needs of the customers and things like that. So this is the content validity. So if we say that a construct, a culture, did we cover everything about the cultures that this company probably should have? That is called content logical validities in the sense, which is you can look at it very in detail sense, which we will cover. But you can also you can also look at it from looking at it, the space validity. Just by looking at it, you know what is good and what is bad. So when I read your sentences, when I read your questionnaire, I can easily tell whether I should give you A, B, C, D, or 80%, or 70%, or 20%, or 1%, and things like that. 现在在忙，但是那个是需要一个图表，对，因为有一个图表，它的那个模式，你才能够了解它整个那个乡村振兴的情况和你的那个所寻找所搜索的一些那个 讀線需要 token. And the second thing is the criterion validity. So you for example, you already know somebody's you're trying to do something and measuring something, and you have some unique ideas of to measure your culture. But then when you go to the literature review, you find out that somebody already also measured the culture. So you want to see whether the way you conceptualize your product or to measure the culture, is it valid? Is it okay? Is it good enough? And so you can actually use other and confirm with other people's. So you do your own criteria, but you also exploit the criteria of others well-established measurement. So we call criterion validity. So that is if you use that is called concurrent validities. Okay, but if you, for example, if you have a criterion that is able to help you predict the future. So if you do this thing, it's going to lead you to the future. For example, if so what kind of things, for example, if you in SAT, if you were in USA when you try to study a master degree, get into scholarship, usually you have to have GMAT, SAT, TOEFL, 600 cross over the 600 before a long time ago. So the first time when I was 15, 16, the first time I run my TOEFL, I was from a Chinese school, and so we don't have any practical any practices of English language, and so I spent about 8 months just doing the the high schools and senior high. So I spent my senior high 3 years in 1 year. Because of acceleration, and then after that I went to TOEFL, and then I got the TOEFL without studying it at 580, so I can able to get into top schools and universities. Actually, I think 580s I was accepted in many schools, including Harvard, in many places, and so I selected Wisconsin's because of the scholarships and friends. And then from there, so these things that can predict the future performance of students is like TOEFLs, SAT, and this and especially SATs and GMAT. So this is called predictive validity. Okay, so you can work on something, and then the something can help you to predict something in the future. That is called predictive validity. Otherwise, you can have concurrent validity. Whichever things you can help you, and to do that, it will help you strengthen your how valid is your product or your measurement or your research. The other one is about the construct, which is how good you are in terms of understanding the variable. And the more you understand the variable, that means you have a clear concept of it. That is starting to form a construct validity, and that construct validities can be in a sense of if something is similar, so your construct has, let's say, flexibility, internal orientation, external orientation, adaptability. If you feel that all these are talking about culture, so it will, all the internal issue will be grouped here, all the external issue will be grouped there, all this, but they are talking all about a construct called culture. So a culture construct, a concurrent validity, a culture, a construct called culture has two parts. One is content, one is the internal perspective, one is the external perspective, and these two, and within the internal perspective, you have many items, and all the items collect together, converge together. That is called convergent, and all these different convergence converge together, yet opposite to each other. It's called discriminant. So all these issues are called validity. So we have the validity issue. You have to make sure which is the goodness of the data. And another one is the reliability, whether how reliable is your process. So you have to, how reliable is your process, how reliable is your measurement. Okay, if something is very much measurement， 那个图表就是说，把你那个乡村振兴所想的那个搜索的东西呢，把它以一个有结构性的那个图表表现出来，这样子而已。The stability, consistency, and so consistency is this. Test retest reliability, meaning that you have a questionnaire, and if your questionnaire is really designed good, you can test to the same group, and then 2 months later you can test again. Or you test other people again and again and again and again. It will come up with it will always come up lead to the same answer. So meaning if people are buying your product coffee, and if this coffee is good, no matter who tests it, it's gonna test and share the similar taste and similar command, similar favorable responses, and that's called stability. So your product is stable. Okay, your product is very stable. It's not only valid to the value proposition, but it's very stable. That means you say you're going to give them this test, and you really deliver the test. So test, retest, reliability always confirm to the point. And if you don't believe it, what you do is, they say if you have a tea, right, or coffee. If you don't believe it, you grab a chunk of coffee, and then grab another chunk of coffee, and then you mix all this chunks of coffee, and then you grab a portion, another portion, and then you give to this to the same customers to test it, and tell them that these are from 2 different products, and the customer will still confirm that it is from the same product. That is called parallel form testing. So it's parallel form reliability. So you can, your questionnaire design, you can separate into 2 portions, and then so for example, if you're trying to understand culture, but you internal perspective of culture, and this internal perspective of culture has let's say 10 items, and so you ask 10 questions, but you randomly grab 5 and randomly grab 5, and then separate into 2 sections. And then don't tell them that you actually did the same, and the customer will still tell you the same thing. Okay, and that's called parallel form reliability. Consistencies means that the things are consistent. Every items are consistent. So if you say internal, this is internal. Okay, so the company, for example, the company, our company adapts. Our company is very adaptable. Okay, or if you another sentence, our customer is very adaptable, and our customer is not your company. And if you put your customer as part of your culture assessment, that is not internal consistency. That means you are mixing some wrong ingredient. So if you tell the customer that you're going to give them organic coffee, but you put inorganic coffee, so when people taste the inorganic coffee, they feel that something is wrong, or they feel, they go to hospitals and this and that. So this is called internal consistencies, reliability. So internally, do you consistently produce the things in a reliable way, right? That's it's called internal consistency. And half split is similar to what I just said, parallel form. So what you do is that you split into 2 halves. Okay, because parallel form can be tested in different way, but it's parallelly. But parallel form in the sense of splitting half. So you split the questionnaire into 2 different sections. One section, and these 2 sections are sharing the similar idea, similar concept, and they will still give you the same situation. Okay, so this is called consistency. So this reliability and validity together will provide whether your research measurement when you talk about culture, when you talk about corporate citizenship behavior, when you talk about measure performance, when you talk about motivation, when you talk about innovation, when you talk about performance, when you talk about competitive advantages, they all measure according to what you say in a very reliable, valid way. And this is all about it. Okay. And the last thing, it's about measurements. So we already talked about measurements. So there's these things. No need to repeat again. And sampling is just nothing where I have already explained whether you want to go for probability sampling or you want to go for non-probability sampling. As I told you, that things that you need purposely understand, for example, the national leaders in nuclear weapons, decisions making, that kind of thing, you cannot simply randomly, because there are only fixed number of nations has the capabilities of nuclear war and nuclear weapons, and so you choose those country nations that has the nuclear, and then you start to interviews and start to do some sampling undone, right? So if you personally knows the presidents of Iraq or Iran and Kim Jong-un or the whatever, and in the North Korea, the whatever, then you can convenient sampling. Otherwise, you can have a little bit more systematic sampling. Okay, if you feel that you have more people, for example, I want to study women's leaders, and so you choose the women's leader, and there are many women's are not women CEO. So you pick all the women CEO, and then you want to see or you want to study women CEO and male CEOs, right? So you look at Thailand, and there are 30% of women as a CEO and 70% of women's of the males a CEO. So you have to give when you choose a sample, even though it's not probability, but you still fix the quotas that 70% has to be male and 30% has to be female. You cannot interview all 90% females and then 10% male and making a conclusion that the 10% is considering representing the male CEO. You can't do that, right? And then when you make a decision whether to sample or not, you also need to ensure that they fit into a certain CEO requirement. Is a certain types of company that you consider, or you just simply any company? If it's any company, I can just go to the street and those cooking and frying noodles, and I say, okay, can I interview you? And that is not the CEO that we expect. We expect the CEOs to conform to certain requirements, right? The number of employees in the company, and the financial performance has to be impressive for consecutive 5 years, and all these are judgment sampling. So you got to judge criteria to give a proper judging criteria for you to have a non-probability sampling. Okay, so even the non-probability sampling, you still need intelligence, and you still need some criteria to give you the process of sampling. Otherwise, you can it will not be valid, right? The things that you study is not reliable, because you simply pick one and then you simply get the ingredients from this and that, and then you're trying to produce a product and it doesn't work. And your product used for one time and retest, it not done. So these are all actually nature of operations processes. And another one is this probability sampling. So you already know your preparation in a very systematic manner, and so you can choose the sampling. But there are a lot of details about sampling. You can systematically, you can simple random it, assign each of the populations numbers. For example, student ID. Right, student ID. I want to survey students in Mephalwang University, and I know your student's ID, so I will pick the 4 numbers as last 4 numbers, and then I will use the random tables, and I'll pick and will choose, right? And then or I can use Excel equal to RAM and RAM or something like that, and then bracket, and then generate the random numbers for your class. And then from there, I can pick the random numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the least number onward. And then this is called simple random. You already have studied in your statistical class. Okay, and the systematic sampling is that, okay, fine, doesn't matter. I'm not going to use the random table. Every 10 numbers, after every consecutive 10 number, I pick that student. So I will run the student's number from the 4 digits list to the highest, ascending level. And then every 10, I pick one. Every 10, I pick one. Every 10, I pick one. Okay, and then things like that. Or I would say that there are different clusters. There are different groups of students, right? And one group's in the aviation, another group in that, and so I can choose the cluster sampling. So I can go to aviation, random it. I can go to BA, random it. I can go to accounting, random it. I can go to whatever, random it, right? And things like that. Or I can choose one area, or a particular area, okay? And or I can choose the random and randoms again to whatever, or whichever. Okay, I can do anything I want. Okay, so these are the random. And just go into this questionnaire design, the principles of wording, and so give you a quick overview on the questionnaire design. So the questionnaire design, it's the principles of the wording, how you word, how you sequence it is very important. So I'll give you a very quick overview of how you design your questionnaire. Okay, for example, the questionnaire is like, our company is very adaptable to exploring the trends of the external market and of the competitors, and we are is that simple enough, or is that clear enough, or maybe not clear, right? So okay, our company is very adaptable to identifying the market trends on a continuous basis, or maybe much clearer, right? So anyway, these are all questionnaire design. So keep it simple and make it interesting. Okay, so your questionnaire has to be very straightforward, simple, and it's interesting, and the wordings are very easy to understand, and it's very concise, short, clearly worded, interesting. And if you can do that, it will get you more reliable answer. If no, then your answer is not reliable. Okay, and but also make it interesting at the very beginning of the questionnaire that really gets to the heart of what the respondents want to tell. So if you want to get people interest, just like when you're trying to sell some product and services, and your questionnaire design, make sure that in the very beginning, when people read your first question, they're really interested in you, and that is very important. So don't provide boring stuff in the very beginning. Try to provide some interesting stuff. And most of the our students or teachers in here always trying to put the questionnaire design in the, these like demographic, how old are you, and people read it in the very beginning when they answer the questions and start to answer the question, am I male, am I female, they start to get very boring unless you explain to them. But if you don't do that, then they usually get very boring. And so you have to make a decision how to sell your product, which is similar to setting up your design question. So, and keep it short, okay? Keep it short. The question is short, because if it's too long, then people won't bother to read it. So keep the questionnaire short and to the point, and don't be tempted to think, why can't we ask more, and why can't we ask other things? And so that if the questionnaire gets too long, then there's no attention, and then the reliability goes down, and they probably don't care about answering your question, and that's why you get a very noisy question answers, right? And so these are very important. Use the language that the respondents would use. So if you want to ask question, don't use very difficult, complex language that people don't understand. Use something simple. And then not only that, you can, good idea is to pre-test it. So you try to give it to your some of the students, right? And some of the people, the relevant consumers or customers, and see whether they give you the some reasonable feedback. So pre-testing the questionnaire to a small group of audience is very, very important, so that you can modify and change your language, right? It's very important. So avoid jargons, acronyms. For example, SSC. How effective is the SSC? No one will understand your how effective is the SSC, right? In meeting your customers on campus. Don't ask this kind of question because no one understands what is SSC. So you have to, this acronym has to expand it into full name. Okay, and the reason is not to cause confusion. And so if anything that confuse people, it's not reliable. Okay. And for many respondents, English is not the language, so you got to translate it in Myanmar language or in Thai language or in Malay, Spanish, or Japanese or Chinese or things like that. Okay, and use language that the respondents would use. Okay, always do that, and not overly complex language. Pretest it. Order the question is very important. Okay, so you don't, as I already demonstrated to you, that don't provide very boring questions in the very beginning, and that means that you can judge your own order the question. So think carefully about the order of the question. Okay, research shows the way we answer one set of question is closely determined by the question that immediately preceded it. And this one is very important because sometimes we design a question and this question, if they answer in this way, it will influence the way they answer the question in of the next question in the same way. That means that you are influencing each other. So really, you have to figure it out. It's not only the questions of borrowing or citings or appropriateness, but it also you have to appropriate your orders of sequence in such a way that this question, the next question is not influenced by your top question. Okay, so these are things that you have to slowly train. Avoid subjective terms, right? Something that is that people still, what do you mean? It could be this, it could be that. So what do you want? So something like that is not valid, right? So avoid using terms that either the questions of the response options are open to the way of interpretation, right? Just what I explained it. And the research showed that the terms like frequently, often are widely interpreted differently by different respondents. So because these are very imprecise, frequently, often, what do you mean? It could be this, could be that. What do you want? And so you could better use terms that have more precise meaning, like once a week, right? Once a week, twice a week, or you can use the terms always and never. But again, this interpretation is more precise. But always and never also have to be careful because very people always do something, and very people never feel something. Do you have do you to what extent you in your life that you feel sad? Never, rarely feel sad, often feel sad, very often feel sad. But the problem is that not many people always feel sad. The problem is that not many people are never feeling something, right? So something is again very, very much subjective in the sense. So how many people do you know who never or always feel happy when they enter a crowded room to believe in never telling a lie? Have you ever told a lie? Never. Are you sure? Okay, so this kind of question it will eliminate those. So people will not answer this question. They will not choose the word never. It is much better to phrase questions like most of the time, approximately, or rarely, or infrequently. So the choice of all these subjective terms turning into more objective term is very important. For example, approximately, how often in the past month have you felt in control of your time? Almost never, right? Never, not good. Almost never, okay? Rarely, frequently, and almost always. And then if you still don't trust your question, pilot test, ask some people and see where, and choose 20 people and see whether 1 is chosen, 2 is chosen, 3 is chosen, 4 is chosen. So the best way is to pilot test and seek the clarification from the respondent. If they answer in a very peculiar way, ask them, and they will tell you, well, what I'm not really clear with this, or I'm not really clear with that. So you can change. Okay, so these are very, very important. This one is just to clarify some of the issues on response skill. Don't worry about including a middle response options like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 skill, right? So the middle, right, in the middle, and neutral, like neutral. Well, this one is appropriate. No problem with that. But some people argue that why you put a neutral, right? It always cause people to go to neutral. But sometimes neutral is really the option. So there is a little amazing in questionnaire design that says never use odd number scale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because people automatically get driven towards the middle. But well, in fact, this is not true. Right? We are more likely to have biased result if we don't provide the middle option. Because if middle option is the real option and you don't provide it, then they will choose something on the left and something on the right. Meaning they will choose 1, 2, or 3, or 4, 5. And so that be even more unreliable. So it is very important we do that. And avoid double negative. Okay, so never, 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 never. What do you mean by never, never? I never, never do. What do you mean by never, never? People, when people look at those negative things, they start to get confused. Okay, so don't avoid all these negative things. Make sense, logical, and appropriate. Make skills logical, right? All your skill 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Are they skills appropriately done and make sense to people, right? That they can use strongly disagree to strongly agree. Is that clear? Or if not, then change strongly, very little to much, very much done. Research does not show that people recall best when the scale response option is a query label that makes sense to the question. So some skills that is very query related to the question that can easily answers, right? So I'll show you a couple of examples later. Put the personal questions at the end, like your demographic, your age, and things like that. I have already explained it to you. Leading and loaded question. Don't ask them some question that you biasly and purposely drive them or unconsciously drive them to answer the question in a way that you impose to them. Okay, so that is called leading and loaded question. If you ask, for example, do you agree that the grades should be abolished on your campus? If like this, that means you are suggesting abolishment. You're suggesting abolishment, right? So your question is not good question. You are leading, responding in a particular direction to suggesting that they should agree with you. This kind of leading questions can be eliminated by writing in a statement form. So you can write in a statement form to what degree you agree or disagree that abolishing on your campus of the grade, right? Strongly disagree 1, and then 5 strongly agree. Or by including in a set of items that have a range of viewpoint. Or if you want to keep in a question form, then do you agree or disagree? Okay, do you agree? Okay, leading question. And step 2, leading the loaded. Another version of bias is writing a loaded question. And so you're loading with some direction, which you are pushed in a particular direction. Weighing it down with specifically charged or biased words. Invoking authorities or majority is one of the techniques that usually are called loaded questions. For example, most doctors feel that a higher fiber diet is healthy. How strongly do you agree or disagree? Even though you say something correctly, but then you have a loaded question. You use the doctors as the antecedent. So people look at most of the doctor feel so why should I disagree? Right? So this is called loaded. Don't do that. Ranking, you can sometimes it may be interesting to other people to rank. And put in the order of preferences to you, which one is your first preference, but try to use it as little as possible, because you don't have much information. Study in statistics, these are called ordinal. These are called ordinals or skills. That is 1, 2, 3, 4 in the ranking set. It really doesn't give you much intensity. It only tell you the ordinals. It tells you the orders, but it doesn't tell you how. So rank number 1. Okay, is that means that you strongly disagree, or very very agree, or strong, or just agreed, or what? So the intensity is not measured. It's only ordinals measures. Okay, so this one you will lose all the data. And knowledge question. Okay, many times the goal of a research project is to uncover how much people know about it. But if you ask people that what do you think about nuclear weapon? Oh, what do you mean? I, I have no ideas about nuclear weapon. Why you ask me this question? So don't try to be smart and ask people and give people quiz question. Okay, and people hate you quizzing people. Okay, so don't try to quiz respondent. Okay, things like that. Or how many people at work drink beer weekly? How do I know? How do you know? How do I know weekly how many people drink beer? Why you ask this question? Should I go and stay with them until late night of everyone? Should I becomes like a god that can spread my bodies to everywhere? Right? This don't ask this knowledge question. Okay, in this sense. Double broad question. This is also not good, right? Meanings that you are combining two things at one time. So, for example, do you when you ask people how much they like ham and eggs, it may be difficult to answer because I can either like one or the others. So double barrel items should be avoided. Okay, matrix format is good if you want to simplify it. For example, you can put into instead of repeating my supervisor encouraged me to do my best at all times. One means the lowest scores, and 7 means the highest score. And then you ask another question. My supervisor is too demanding with my time. 1 means lowest score, means 7 highest score. Which one you would respond? It repeat again and again. Why don't you put into a matrix form? Okay, this is a matrix form, right? A matrix form. So column by column and row by row, right? This is called a matrix form, right? Matrix form. Okay, so you can put into all these things. My supervisors answer all the questions and in the relating scale, which will give a proper instruction. Okay, on a scale from 1 to 7, from where 7 is the highest and 1 is the lowest, evaluate your immediate supervisor on each of the following, right? And then things like that. Okay, so they can. Example, indicate how strongly you agree or disagree with the following statement by circling the number of the best, right? And you put the proper statements here and then strongly disagree, somewhat disagree, or neutral, somewhat agree, strongly agree, and then ask them to circle, right? So index and scale. Sometimes we have many items like culture, right? So we can combine them into some scale and some index, right? Often one item just isn't enough for assessing the particular concept. Like culture, you have to ask many questionnaire, many questionnaire items. You have to ask many items, right, to understand the supervisor behavior. So you cannot ask only one item, right? Reliability increases when a concept is assessed with multiple items. So how you know your supervisor depends on many questions that you answer. If you only ask one question, that means the response you get is not reliable, totally not reliable, because a supervisor can react to you and can be best reflected in many different ways. But if you are looking at only one direction, one perspective, then you cannot tell. For example, if the students out and in and out and in and out and in and out, and then how are you going to tell who is Dr. Tan is? How is he explaining in the classroom? How is he dedicating to his lecture? And then if the student is it's about 130 and only 50s are attending, and then you are asking them to assess that the rest of the 100 is imagination or simply no responsibility. They simply just say, okay, well, fine. Well, maybe he's not doing it. His English language is very bad. He cannot express language properly, and he has no grammatical, and he can speak a little bit of the, he speak with all these things, and he cannot express clearly. And so and the first, this is called invalid. You are asking wrong people. So this kind of survey is an invalid survey. So if the university take the survey, the university will get the wrong information, and the universities will always think that this guy is good, that guy is bad, this student is good, that student is bad, this curriculum is good, that curriculum is bad, this concept is good, that concept is bad, all invalid. And if they're invalid, then they apply and then they boost it, and they think they are doing good. Actually, they're all wrong. So you have to know that the research can make a university, a research can make an organization, a research can make a place, a research can make industries collapse. So, for example, everybody is talking about fluorochloroquine, fluorochloroquine and all these gancha, the cannabis. And then everybody say cannabis good, cannabis good, cannabis good, cannabis good, cannabis good, gancha is good, gancha is good, gancha is good, gancha is good. And then only from one side, and then you forget about doing research and forget about other things. Then you get the wrong information. It is good, but it is not good in one direction. So you have to have many items. So reliability increases when the concept is assessed with multiple items. In such a way, you can add all these items cumulatively together to give a total score, so you can know what's happening. And maybe you can separate and study different areas. This is only one perspective. So this, for example, some meta index or happiness, I ask you 10 questions. And in this 10 question, I ask you in terms of 1 to 5 Likert scale. I have so 5 points and 10 questions, so the maximum is 50 points. So if I added all this together, the most happy would be scoring 50 points, and the least, which is 10 points, would be the closest scoring would be the least happy respondent. So you can probably know someone is most happy or least happy from the scale index and the scale. So an example of a semantic differentiation when respondents evaluate something's a lot of continuum opposing values. You also can do that. So for example, you can ask opposing scale, right? Strong means 1, 7 means weak, lazy means 1, 7 means ambitious, tradition 1 means modern, and then you can ask them to circle and tell what happened, and then from there you can make sure that it's synchronized, that all the positive in this direction in one direction and negative in another direction, and then integrate them, right? And add them up, okay? Up, and this one you may swap, okay? It depends on your situation. Intensity scale, right? And so this intensity is very important. It's like I've spread it to you before. The more intensity you have, not too large. Maybe 5 is good, 7 maybe a little bit more already, but it's okay. But more than 7 is very confused, right? It's too much asking people to break down into too many details. People cannot really answer your question. So a good way of writing close-end questionnaire design is to measure people's attitude and opinion with intensity scales like 1 to 5. Strongly disagree to disagree, and these are very very important, and consistently do it in a very consistent way. For example, I'll give you a couple of examples on questionnaire design. So I have a questionnaire design which I have a variable called institutionalizing the planning and planning function. So I asked a couple of instead of asking one question, I asked many questions, 5 questions, so it's more reliable. Okay, do top executive take formal responsibility for organization, strategic management, business planning? Is strategic planning a top priority activity performed on a regular basis? And I ask you, I'll give you a scale. Little is 1, much is 5, and some is 3, and then the rest you can figure it out. Okay, so these are the scale, and this is another questionnaire for strategic situational diagnosis. Do your company diagnose strategic issue, little or some or much? Does your organization periodically gathers and analyze data about market and other external factors which affect the business? This is how questionnaire design is. Okay, and you can have various different types of design or questionnaire. You could have the Likert scales in the sense of this, like I have explained it to you. You can ask how important, right, especially in the customer, how important is this attribute to your product or this value to you? right? And or how important was each of the following item in your decision to choose this training? Okay, things like that. Very important, not at all importance, not very important, quite important, very important, ask them to think. Or you can have semantic skill, opposing skill, or you can have checklist, or you can have ranking. Okay, so but try to use as less as possible on this checklist and ranking, because they really contribute nothing on intensities, right? It's more statistic. Okay, so give you so you can, if this is called conceptual model. And so this is what I mentioned since the very beginning about the conceptual model. So if I ask you about the variables like corporate organizational citizenship, corporate culture, and so how you're going to interrelate each others to other variables, this is called, you have to show the conceptual model. None of you show the conceptual model, meaning you do not even read articles and do not even care about reading articles, simply just brainstorming. So all of you get used to brainstorming, which is not good, and relying on brainstorming, so relying on group projects, and this student please do it, and then the rest just take a rest. And so you're not able to come up with a model. The models come from a systematic design of your literature reviews on skill, and see how the skills, task identity, task significance influence the psychological state in what way, and which then influences the work performance in another way, and which are the variables are moderators that they are like a muscles man, leave the relationship between the core dimensions of job characteristics to the relation and the level of work and performance outcomes. That is called moderators, which is like muscle man. And in the middle is the psychological, is the mediator. The more the mediations take into the pictures, the more core dimensions can influence the work and performance. So the work personal outcomes can be influenced if you can influence, if you can utilize the core dimension and changes the psychological states of the people. That kind of thing you have to explain in literature review. That kind of things you have to use references, you have to read the papers to cite and list on the literature review. That is what we mean by literature review. The ability to explain this conceptual model in a very essay form that utilize the citation and references of your reading materials to help you explain why these are important and why these are psychological states are important, why there is a psychological needed in order to make use of core characteristics domain of a job. Is very much important in the literature review, and what is the outcome, and why moderators is important, why there are three moderators variable: growth, need, knowledge, and skill satisfaction with the work context. Why so? Explain them. Okay, so all this you already have studied in your human resource management, in your human resource organization development. You have studied in HRD, you have studied in even operations management, right? So some of the textbook operations management not only about human resources, they also talk about how you're going to enrich the job. So you can enrich the job through what? Through the skill, variety, give them more variety of skill. Train them, give them more variety, give them task identity, allow them to know that their task is very, very important, that you are one of the very important tasks that give the value proposition. You are the first requirement for value propositions for the customer. And so they tell them that your job is very significant. And I give you all the authority to make decision. I give you I will feedback to you your results and how good you have done in your job. So all these job characteristics that people give you the decisions making, authority, the feedback, the task significance, the skill variety, all this becomes a requirement, right, for a good job. And this is for a good operation. So without all and this is operational detail. So if you have a job that is like, for example, in automations or in a semiconductors assembly lines, or in a continuous process flow, or in a project management situation design, or in the batching process design, and all these different process design will require a different skills combination, task identity, task significance, autonomy, and feedback. All these in combinations. How are you going to make use of them? That depends on whether you can influence the psychological state. And that depends on whether you recruit and choose and select the people that they really care about growing, that you give them sufficient knowledge and skill, that you provide incentive, and you provide the design of your environment that allow them to satisfy with your work context. Unless you take care of your work environment, unless you provide the training, unless you recruit with the right people, you are not able to make use of your job design, which is skill, variety, task, identity, task, significance, autonomy, and feedback. And if that is so, you are not able to get your company perform, operate in the performance requirements that you define. So this is what we mean by research, literature reviews, right? So the things that I have explained to you, that is all about literature review. And if you can, an explanation, the sequence of your writing, that is all about, this is the sequence. The things I explained to you, if you can explain them in a sequential way, in the way that people can understand your job model, the characteristic model at the end of a literature review, then you have done a good job. And so what is hypothesis? Doing a good job on core dimensions give you a higher level of psychology. That is hypothesis. A good psychological state at a higher level of psychology give you a higher performance level. That is hypothesis. A moderating variables leverages the relationship between and live up the relationship between the one side and the other side. That is a hypothesis. So all these are just nothing, but you have done it before, right? So I will not go through in details. I expect you to, you can refer back to your human resources. And so first of all, if you want to measure it, if you want to do a research and to find out the data, you have to provide a proper definition. So what is skill variety? So conceptual definition, doing different things at work that require variety. And so give all these definitions and definitions and definitions and definition and that, so that you can turn all this measure definition into variable. Right? You can develop how much variety is there in your job. That is, what extent does the job require you to do many different things at work using a variety of skill? One, very details. Okay, the job require me to do the same routine job again, over and over again. Or seven, very much variety. Okay, the job requires me, and more detail, right? It requires me to do many different things using a number of different skills and talents. Which one is yours? Okay, so this is how you set up a questionnaire based on the definition. So you don't have only one item, you have many items, so it's more reliable. I explained to you already. So the job requires me, the second item requires me to use a number of complex or high level skill. How accurate is this statement in describing your job? Very inaccurate, mostly inaccurate, slightly inaccurate, uncertain, slightly accurate, mostly accurate, and many accurate. Okay, so you can different consistencies of your questionnaire skills in your question. The job is quite simple and repetitive. Okay, I put a star. Okay, how accurate is this statement? So if I put a star, it means that it is not skill, it is opposite to what I intend to do on skill variety. It's simplicity. So in terms of star, I have to reverse the direction when you do before you do the data analysis. So items marked with a star to be scored as 1 becomes 7, 2 becomes 6, 3 becomes 5, 5 becomes 3, 6 becomes 2, 7 becomes 1. Okay, and things like that. 4 remains 4. Okay, this is just different models that you have already familiar in strategic management, which performance comes from choices of your strategy, whether you are choosing strategy in terms of operational improvement or positioning, or some trade-off, or some cost differentiations, or some fittings, or things like that, whatever, and which are coming from the external factors, which coming from internal factors. All these are variable, and each of the variable has many different variable, and each variable has many items. Cognitive HR systems could be variables, and which you have 5 items. Cognitive limits could be another 5 items. Measurements systems systems could be another 5 items. And so you can take the data and measure it. That's very, very simple. And then you just use the like scale. For this case, I can measure index, or I can measure, based on items, I can measure the index. I give them index called motivating potential scores. The higher the score, the better I can, improve the psychological state, and the more I can improve the performance. So I can use different types of motivational, I can use different types of index. Right, I can add all this together on the job characteristics, or I can just use skill plus task plus this, because it influences the other psychological state, and then I divide it by 3, and then I multiply by autonomy and feedback, or I can just add everything together. So these are just nothing but like this situation. Okay, so we have the study. Today I have explained it to you, this different research process, and step by step, given you to explain it to you all the sequence of research design, and trying to reflect to you that it relates to what you have done, what you have studied in the past, and it's very and it's similar to the product design, production, which is you need to deliver the valid product, you need to deliver a reliable product, and you need to deliver a product that is able to market to various different markets, and so it's generalization. So in the research, we talk about population generalizations, representational generalizations, or and analytical generalizations that fit into the problematic definitions context. So minimizations of research skills we will cover next time. But I just want to tell you that in a typical research, whichever design that you do, the processes that we go from one end to another end, we have to make sure that we are able to reduce the error of our research design and to very minimum as possible. So we have to minimize those total research error. One of them comes from this random sampling, which I already told you. The population, that you have to choose the right population, you have to sample correctly, whether you're using random samplings or non-random, non-probabilistic sampling, convenient based sampling, purposeful sampling, or judgmental sampling. All these are called this sampling is very important, random sampling. But the other sampling, that the other is not related to sampling, which is relating to your overall concept, theoretical concept, and your overall questionnaire design, and your overall measurement. That is called non-sampling error. The non-sampling errors are very, very important. There are two domains. One of them is response error, and the other one is the non-response error. So response errors means that the researchers, you yourself, yourselves are not designing the things properly. You yourselves are given loaded questionnaire. You yourselves are given double barrels questionnaire. You yourself are designing things in the wrong way, or you yourselves influence the interviews. So researchers play a very important role, influencing the way the people respond. And so so one of the error is coming from you, researcher. The other error is coming from the way you interviews. The other error is coming to the way the people respond to you, which could be, as I already explained in the questionnaire design, it could come from your questionnaire design that is inappropriate, that causes an error. It could come from your responses skill. It could come from the time given to them. It could come from the language. It could come from the people that are not knowledgeable to answer your question. All these are relating to response error. So you have to look at every domain of the response error, and you can sometimes try to minimize it by pre-testing it, pilot testing it. You can, and then slowly make an adjustment on it to minimize the error. So it's just nothing but in your production, continuous improvement, or in mathematics we call optimization. So we have to optimize according to what? According to an objective function, which is called response error objective function. So taking in view of the objective functions of response error, which has three domains, one could caused by the researcher, which is you, another caused by the interview process, another one is caused by the respondents responding to your problem, including your measurement. That all these issues can be minimized in minimizing your response errors objective functions, which whether you study mathematics, you can go to optimization. You study operation, you can go for continuous improvement concept. So it's all the similar things, right? The next thing is non-response. People refuse to respond to you. For example, you give them a questionnaire. When I read the questionnaire, I do not want to respond. Why? Maybe I don't like your questionnaire. Maybe your questionnaire is designed in a very biased manner. I'm a woman, and you always ask me about men. I get very frustrated, so I refuse to answer your question. Maybe I accept you in the beginning, but I refuse to answer many parts of the question. Because of that, you produce non-sampling error. You produce a huge error. So this it is not relating to the sampling. It's relating to how you respond. Either you respond or not respond, creating error. So you have to look at those people who do not respond. Those people who do not respond to your items. Why do they do not respond to your item? Is this non-respondence of your items repeatable? Has a pattern that mostly women do not respond, or mostly elder age do not respond, or many, or what? You have to look at it. Or maybe you try to call them out and they are not at home. You ask them and they're not at home. So that there's no one to respond to you. So you're missing one important respondent that is, and which is very important for you, but you simply miss them. And then you don't care to go and continue to knock on the door. Hello, and they disappear from your responses, from your response database, which is very much causing an error. So your job in whatever I have just told you, the whole 2-hour session, is to reduce the total research error. So the things that I ask you to do, I give you the consultations here on this page, 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 on this page. It's all about and the questionnaire design. It's all about minimizations of the error. So these are very important in minimization of the error. And for example, we can reduce, if you want to reduce those errors, it means that you have to focus on validity, which I have explained to you. You have to focus on reliability, which I have explained to you. You have to focus on good questionnaire design, which I explained to you. And you also have to focus on triangulation. So triangulation is just nothing but, if you know, in a geographical positioning positioning system, GPS. And so when you try to zoom into a place, a location accurately, you have to have 3 points. So a 2 point is only a line, right? In mathematics, you know, right? If a two point, it's only a line. So the accuracy is only on the line. If it's very far, it's a huge accuracy error, right? So you do not know where. If you try to shoot a missile, to a location which you only use your GPS only has 2 points, and your error is only a line, so you do not know your missile is going to hit here, it's 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 going to hit here. So you're not able to do that. But if you can identify 3 points, 1, 2, 3. So you have triangulation, so that these triangulations can zoom into the point, and so my missiles can hit the point accurately. So the error minimizations means you have to resolve to triangulation. So you have meanings what? Meanings you have to combine different concepts. You have to talk to many different people. You have to use questionnaire plus interview. You have to combine observation plus interviews plus questionnaire. You have to use different people to go out and find the data and see whether different people find the data come with the same conclusion or not. That is called triangulation. Okay, so we have to you have to collect the data from various different angles, from various different modes, so that we can accurately shoot the missiles to that place. Again, you can see I am trying all my best to explain, and out and in and out, in and out, out and in, and not even 11 o'clock and already disappear another couple of people. And so when you go and read the detail next time, if you do not refer back to the recording, and how are we going to understand, explain it, how are we going to understand triangulation? And so when you give the explanation, when you ask them, do you know triangulation? I do not know. Have you been taught of triangulation? I have no idea. I think the class did not teach us. So I have given you so many things that equip you to do the research and equip you to understand and also do the exam, but none of you come to the class in and out, out and in and out, out and in, and so the whole things cannot be completed. This means what? This means that if these things are like this and people are surveying you wrongly, and if you are next time you're your CEO, your peoples are going in and out, in and out, out and in and out, out and in, and do you think you can get your companies to be on the top of the company? You cannot, because this is karma. Because whatever you have done today to this class, you're going to get influenced on you in the future when you are a leader. No one will listen to you because you behave in this way. And this is called repetitive. You're not able to repeat. Why? Because you cannot demonstrate the same behavior again and again and again. So you are not reliable. So is there any difference between you and the reliability that I just told you? No, you are not reliable because you're not given a reliable process to determine your attitude. So reliability is not there. Validity of you able to demonstrate a performance in your job is not there. So validity is not there. Generalization is not there because you are not able to generalize into different context, different environment, different application, different job. So you're not able to expand. So this, anyway, so the data triangulation, it's about you collecting various different sources of data, from you coming up with different theories to see you can explain the same thing with different theory. So we have direct theory triangulations, we have data triangulation, we use different people to help us collect the data, investigation, investigator triangulation, we use different methods to triangulate it. So we have methodological triangulation. So we use different theory to explain the similar phenomena. We have to read a lot of literature review. We have to collect many different types of data, as many different domains as possible. So we have data being triangulated, we have theory being triangulated, we have investigation being investigated, being triangulated, we have methodological being triangulated. So from the methodological, investigator, data, theory perspective, everything's together triangulated will give you a very true picture. That is called validity. And if you can do that in a very consistent way, that is called reliability. So triangulation is used to increase your credibility and validity, but you have to also do it in a very reliable way. That is called a reliable business process. Reliability is necessary for validity, but it's not sufficient, but it is a reliable process that you committed to execute the job again and again. That means you come to the class consistently, in a very punctual way, and always listen. In that case, you can answer the question again and again and again and again. You can answer the exam question no matter which time I give it to you. Either I give it to you in 1 hour time, or give it to you in 2 hours, or for 2 hours, or give it to you for 3 hours, or give you always will repeat again and again and again and again. Or I give you today, or give you tomorrow, you will repeat again and again and again and again. Or I give you after the class, you will get it again and again and again. If no, then you are not reliable. You have to go and you have to go and find more information. That's why I'm worrying about you. That's why I give you sufficient time for your exam. But you still cannot do that because you are not going through a reliable process. That means you're not authentic to yourself. You're not promising to yourself. You are not responsible even to yourself. How should you be devoid of the right to give a questionnaire design on surveying or evaluating any people? You have no right. Because you have no knowledge. I have told you the questionnaire design. If you give a respondent, and if the respondent does not have the knowledge, and you're giving them a knowledge question, can you tell me something about this instructor? Can you tell me something about this the student, you have no knowledge about this instructor, the knowledge of the student, and you simply answer the question. You're going to give a question that make no meanings, a response that make no meaning, not reliable, invalid, useless. So when I share with you, I'm trying to explain the phenomena of research from various different angles in your daily life, in your production, in your operation, in your human resource design, in your branding management, whatever, strategic management. I'm giving you all the detail and let you refer back and connect back to your memory. So according to artificial intelligence and neural network, I'm trying to open up your neurons. I'm trying to fire up your neurons so that your neurons connect back to strategic management, connects back to human resource development, connects back to branding management, connect back to operations management, connects back to every single subject you study, so that within 1 session or 2 hours, you get tremendous amount of knowledge and enlightens. But you're not. You're just in and out and not attending the question. Even I'm trying to explain to you about the attendance, I'm talking about research. I am not talking about attendance. I'm just using attendance as part of the response, as part of the scenario, part of the problem issue to help you understand what is a valid, reliable, generalizable research. You can see I always targeted to the point, but you always forget about it, don't care about it. So a machine can produce the same result over and over again, but not match definition of the construct or a theory. That is not reliable. So this to reduce the errors in qualitative sense, you have, or even quantitative, you also need to figure it out using the similar concept. I mean, mostly in qualitative, you have to use different types of investigators, right? Not just questionnaire, you have to use different types of investigator, and people can look at the subjective terms using different domains, different knowledge, and so that's why different theories. You can look at the same situations, argue from the social theory, you can argue from the psychological theory, you can argue from the social psychological theory, you can argue from the social technical theory, you can argue from the mechanistic theory, you can argue from the systemic theory, you can argue from the cybernetic theory, you can argue from the system science theory, you can argue from various different angles, and still can tell the same story or similar story, or maybe same data with different domains of understanding. That is called theory triangulation. That is called enlightening our understandings of what we are doing in our qualitative research. So qualitative research is about rich story. It's about rich understanding. It's about rich phenomena. It's about a rich ability to explain what is going on. Therefore, theory triangulation is extremely powerful. So this we will stop here, okay? And we have covered many pages in 2 hours, and I've given you a lot of understanding again, and repeats many of the details, including questionnaire design today, which help you to link back to so many things, and trying to minimize the errors. And in fact, you can, if you understand the core concepts of minimizations or error, you can easily read the rest of the situations. Like, for example, if I have a research trying to explain some phenomena, whether using questionnaire to reduce the to help me explain the phenomena, how am I going to reduce the error? One of the error is the questionnaire design, which is measurement. The another error is coming from the way I sampling. Okay, which the rest is non-sampling response, and this which is just breaking out of the sampling, random sampling and non-sampling error. So these non-sampling errors, I can have measurements, I can internal, how good I understand the phenomena, meaning the literature review. And in terms of sampling, I also need to understand the confidence level. Is it 95% confidence? Is at 90% confidence, and all this confidence levels, which also affects the p-value, which affects the critical value, which affects how I determine whether something is right or wrong with statistics, right? So if it's confidence level of 95% confidence, so I have 5% errors of here. So I have alpha equal to 0. Let's say 0.05. So if I do the data analysis and find that the p-value that about the alternative hypothesis is 0.04, which is less than 0.05, so that I know that I'm right here, so that I can reject the null hypothesis. It means that I have the hypothesis that corporate citizenship culture driving the motivation, the organization learning is valid and supported. And so this is we support the hypothesis. So alternative hypothesis is about the hypothesis with something causes something. Null hypothesis means no relationship. So this one you already have studied in statistics. Or you can do instead of using p-value, you can use the standardization of your measurement data and use the z value and the critical z value. You can look from your table, and the critical z value of that the 0.05 is let's say is 1.7. So anything less than 1.7 is if my z value is lower than that critical value, that means I accept the hypothesis, the null hypothesis. If it's over the critical value, that means I accept the alternative hypothesis. And this is what we means by reject the hypothesis, right? And things like that. Okay, so this something that you already have studied in your statistics. Okay, whether I go through or not, you can easily understand. So this very important. Okay, so today we will stop here, and I hope you understand.